Hello my fellow hammerheads and welcome to the second lore part for the Broken Realms Morathi. In this video we will cover the dramatis personae and information you need to fully appreciate the lore behind the first book of this series. But before we begin, I recommend that you buy and read the book and the stories for yourself, because only this way we can support Games Workshop, the Black Library, their authors, and you can enjoy the unabridged stories for yourself. As always, I will provide the faction-specific terminology in the description box down below. As for every new wonderful being watching this, as every video could be someone's first, these lore videos are meant to be role-played. I don the mantle of a traveler who gathers information about the lore and welcomes you in my newly set up Hammerhead Inn, which is located somewhere in the mortal realms. Now, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's begin. Hello my friend. Welcome back to the Hammerhead Inn. Please sit down. I already prepared your drink. Relax, my friend. There is no need for tension here. Under my roof, you are safe. Now, where did we leave the story last time? Yes, I remember. The Khainite Sigmarite armies invaded the 8 Points so that the High Oracle of Khaine, Morathi, could obtain the precious Varanite, the molten realm stone of the 8 Points. For her plans to fulfill, she convinced the God King Sigmar to aid her under the guise that she is doing everything for the good of all the people under the banners of order. As Archaon, the three-eyed king, wanted to use the Varanite to crack open the archway to Azir, the realm of heaven and seat of Sigmar's throne. Morathi accompanied both armies to the 8 Points and the Varanite mines in Ranthrax's Maw, and as soon as she had her hands on enough Varanite, she betrayed the Stormcast Eternals and fled back to Ulgu and to her stronghold, Hagnar. This is where we will continue the story. Back in Hagnar, Morathi was already preparing the grand ritual which should ascend her to godhood. Under pressure and the prospect of doom, she paid steep prices in order to obtain items which could nullify the Varanite's corrupting powers, but would maintain its power of transformation. The Varanite, the Math Core, and the High Oracle herself were not the only ingredients in this endeavor. The Daughters of Khaine secured many vital points in Morathi's domain in Ulgu, primordial points which connected the shadow paths from Ulgu to Ulgish, a subrealm between Ulgu and Haish. Every point was protected by a host of Melusai warriors, and inside were very, let's call them, specific prisoners, ready to be sacrificed in the High Oracle's name. With claims of Khaine's looming rebirth, Morathi decreed a Khalich Coven, a gathering of all the warriors from each Khainite temple in Ulgu, but only the Scathborn knew the truth of the ritual. She knew that she would be vulnerable during the ritual, and even though Hagnar is protected by the natural geological formations and battle-hardened elves, Sigmar's forces, should he uncover her duplicity, or the armies of Slaanesh could penetrate her defenses. So she called upon old allies from Ulgu's indigenous elves of the free city of Misthaven. Riches were promised, and the cutthroat fleetmaster Nightscar accepted without hesitation and brought his black ark to defend Hagnar. And as with many deals that were struck with Morathi, the majority of the involved souls knew not what they were fighting for. My contacts in the underwater enclaves of the Idoneth told me of an interesting development. While Morathi is preparing her ritual in Ulgu, High King Volturnus of the Idoneth called for a grand assembly, a gathering which even the secretive Dormhain deigned to attend after centuries of silence. One of the shadow stalkers of Morathi was captured, and they stole the Okarian lantern's location from her mind. In unison, they agreed to take the war to the Canvir, Idoneth for landwalkers. Through the Liagata Whirlway, the Idoneth came to Ulgu. Namatai riding nautily shell beasts, leviathans coming out of the darkness. The combined forces of the Idoneth attacked, and they would lay waste to Hagnar until Volturnus found what had been stolen. But Morathi already started her ritual. The sky of Ulgu crackled with arcs of red lightning, and her chanting drifted from the high towers of Hagnar across the lands. As the first wave of Idoneth struck the defenders, it seemed as the ocean had come to life to drown the Free Guild regiments. But the defenders were grim veterans who knew of the Idoneth ways. Blood in the water was inevitable. But still, the Deepkin were successful in landing on the beach. The loss of life was great. Namatai and Witch Elves were butchered where they stood. Leviathans and Charybdis tore into each other without mercy. Fighting his way through the defenders was High King Volturnus, and the assault seemed to be unstoppable as the tide. At the same time, the Herald of Slaanesh, Glavia Sinhard, started its own attack on Hagnar, accompanied by the Lord of Pain, Gasterix. Both were guided by visions of Slaanesh's upcoming jailbreak. Punching through the defenders of Hagnar and slicing into the forces of the Idoneth with shrieking warriors and bladed chariots, the Khainite warriors used the confusion and launched themselves into the flanks of the Slaaneshi Godseekers, as they were their enemies all through the Cathra duel, the War of Shadows. The Scourge privateers, on the other hand, observed the situation and retreated back into their Black Ark, leaving the Daughters of Khaine alone with two rivaling armies. The Idoneth were trapped. Still, Volturnus knew what to do, and his orders came as swift as ever. Gathering his best warriors around him, he left the majority of his forces and attacked the temple itself. The Okarian lantern was not far now. While under constant pressure from the Khainites, the High King and his Achillean guard charged forward in search for the Kruthu, an underhall in which the fabled Mother Cauldron lies. No one on the beach, fighting for their lives, was aware that Morathi's ritual already started. All around Ulgu, on every vital point for the ritual, the Hag Queens initiated their part for the ritual. The faithful were led in their prayers, while their special prisoners died as their throats were cut. The spilling blood was caught in the cauldrons of blood, and as every cauldron is connected to the math core, it transformed the Mother Cauldron into a nexus of power. The souls of the sacrifices were sent to Ulgish, the subrealm in which the Dark Prince Slaanesh was held captive. The Dark Prince, at first euphoric, quickly recognized the taint in the souls, but it was too late. Thousands of revolting souls spilled down his gullet, bloating his shackled form. He struggled against his chains, but could not break free. But something had breached the wards of his prison. Morathi, with the iron heart of Khaine in one hand and the Okarian lantern in the other, strode towards the math core. The Varanite boiled and mists of crimson enveloped her until her attendants were not able to see her. The ritual opened a portal between the math core and Slanesh's belly. Satisfied, Morathi raised the lantern and plunged herself into the Varanite. No words of mine could describe her suffering, but it was only a fraction of pain which she endured in the thousands of years in the Dark Prince's belly. So just with the strength of her will, she raised the lantern high, and its beam cut through the maelstrom. Inside the belly of the beast, the elven souls were attracted to the Okarian lantern, and Morathi knew exactly which ones she would need for her goal. Only the strongest and mightiest would do. The ones she knew from another life, in the world that was. Enemies, rivals, allies, and a lover. Devouring every soul she could find, the remaining souls would take form and fight her. But Morathi was too strong as she consumed more and more of the souls. Only the last one, her love, was able to strike and wound her. Suffering and in pain, she fell into the darkness, her very being sundered by her former love. All this commotion inside of him made the Dark Prince convulse, and the Shadow Queen had to retreat. On the other side of the war, the Idoneth Deepkin were successful in their assault and breached the defenses of the Khainites. Screams of agony, mindless and bestial in nature, grew louder and more ferocious with every passing moment. And as Volturnus cut open the gate to the crew-through, every sea elf saw where the screams emanated from. Swift as the sea, the High King and his Huntmaster scythed through Morathi's Melusai guardians. Only the urge to end the ritual was in the High King's mind, as no one knew what Morathi's goals would be. With a strike from his sword, Volturnus destroyed the math core and was hurled away by the blast. Khainites and Idoneth alike were covered with Varanite. As every elf picked themselves up, something was moving inside the destroyed Mother Cauldron. The Shadow Queen rose. Her serpentine form emerged from the blood-red mist and spread her wings to let loose a primal scream that shook the chamber. Beneath her, the beauty of Morathi walked slowly, and with a triumphant smile on her lips outside of the cauldron, Volturnus demanded her head for her crimes against the Idoneth. But at this point, Morathi was elevated above the judgment of mortals. With eerie precision, the Shadow Queen matched Morathi's movement with each subtlety. As the Idoneth tried to subdue her, Morathi smashed them aside with an ease which befouled her apparent exhaustion, striking Volturnus down and standing above him with her spear heartrender at his throat. He saw that she was no longer a high oracle. She became Morathi-khaine. Once a mortal, now a goddess. Ordering her forces to cease the violence, she struck a deal with Volturnus, as both races were outcasts, and if the other elven gods would be strong enough, they would surely destroy the Idoneth and the daughters of Khaine. For what seemed like an age, the High King thought about her offer. She stole from the Deepkin and desecrated their sacred temple. But to everyone's surprise, she admitted her deeds and gave Volturnus the Okarian lantern back. Even though it was broken and its light dimmed, it still shimmered with the particles of Haish stars. In addition, she offered him the souls of his friends, the Kaitai, which were back inside Slaanesh Skullet after their untimely deaths. Morathi rescued them as a token of goodwill, and Volturnus bade her to speak her piece. One last thing before we part ways for today. You might ask yourself, what about Glavia, Gasterix, and the rest of the Slaaneshi forces? Well, as Morathi suckled on all those souls inside of Slaanesh, something else happened in the Dark Prince. Something was formed. A protean shape which followed the retreating Shadow Queen outside, and as the Math Core was struck by the High King, unbeknownst to all, it escaped from the heart of the explosion and was hurled away from the Khainite temple, trailing lurid colors. Glavia and every single one of her followers erupted in ecstatic joy, quickly abandoning the fight and following the indistinct shape. I'm sorry to say that I'm tired, but I will tell you the rest of the story the next time you will visit me here. I hope my attempts to prepare you for the upcoming events were successful. I'm keen to know what you think about everything I told you. Just leave me a note under my table. I hope you will lend your ear to my stories again. I have many more for you to quench your thirst for knowledge. You just have to listen for the bell, and you will know that I'm here again, waiting for you. Have a good night, friend, and please, stay fantastic. Bye.